Hello and welcome to our first online lecture in COMP3020, Professional Ethics in Computing. Today, I'm going to give you a short overview of the concept of professionalism. Given that this is a module around professional ethics, you need to understand what professionalism is beyond computing in order for us to then work through what that looks like in the area of computing. So if I were to ask you, what do you think of when you hear the word profession? Can you give us examples of professionals? Who is a professional? I suspect you would come up with the two following as the first options. So you could look at the medical profession. So you see a doctor here on the left. And you could also look at the legal profession. So these are two primary examples of professions. These are two of the oldest professions. And they are typically held up as examples of professions because they are very much advanced in terms of their structure, their existence, and the way in which they are run. So doctors and lawyers are well-established professions, and I will come back to those on various occasions during this lecture, but they're not the only ones. There are other professions, other examples of professions that you might also think of. So those would be the civil engineer who you see on the left, might be the teacher who you see in the middle, or more broadly, the manager, the organizational leader you see on the right. These are also typically seen as professions. They share some of the characteristics with the earlier ones. For example, that they typically require a higher educational background. But then you could also think about more applied professions, professions that have a manual component. You see the plumber here, the firefighter, or the carpenter. All of these can also be seen as professions. So when you call a plumber, you want a professional plumber. When you want a carpenter, you want somebody who understands the nature of the profession. So the question then is, what do all of these different professions have in common? And there are various answers to this, but a key one is that a profession is based around a body of knowledge. So if you want to be a professional in a particular area, you have to be able to demonstrate that you have this specialized knowledge. This is typically, there's a theoretical component to this knowledge, but it doesn't have to be exclusively theoretical. So typically it is a combination of theory and practical and applied knowledge that you have to display. And that is true for the doctor as well as for the firefighter or the plumber. The second point of importance is that professions are areas of activities which have an important impact on the public good. So if you are in a profession, then what you do may benefit your clients, may benefit yourself, but overall the idea is that there is a service orientation. So you do something which benefits individuals, but by doing so, it benefits the overall public good. The doctor, for example, ensures that there are higher level of health across the population. The lawyer ensures that the law is applied universally and equitably. The plumber makes sure that the housing stock is safeguarded and you don't get flooded. So there is an individual component in that people benefit from it, but there is the idea that it leads to a better public good. And then finally, what these professions also have in common to different degrees is that they agree on what's right and wrong, what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And that is typically captured in a code of ethics. So most professions have a code of ethics. If you want to be a professional, you have to sign up to the code of ethics and you have to adhere to it. So what else are features of a profession? So if you want to be a professional across those different types of professions, what is it that they have in common? What are the features that you would expect? So the first one is around entry, standards of entry and training. So typically in order to join a profession, you have to have some initial training, some initial education. So this may be a medical degree in a university, if you want to be a doctor, a law degree. It may also be a more vocational initial training, which you get in college if you want to be a carpenter. On top of that, so this is a general bit of training which you end with some sort of certification. On top of that, you would typically need some training within your institution. So this, for a medical doctor, would be their junior doctor years where they rotate through different specialities. If you're a carpenter, you would typically go to college for a couple of days a week, and then you would work on a site or in your company for the rest of the week. So there's this combination of general training to start out with, and more specific applied institutional training in your place of work where you learn the details of your activities. All of this is linked to certification and testing. So you would typically need some sort of certification that you have the basic knowledge to join the profession, and then you would typically have to demonstrate that that is kept up to date and that your competence develop. So that's with regards to training and the entry to the profession. The second component of a profession is that it has a professional association or a professional body, and that body is characterized by self-regulation. So the professional body, in the case of medicine, this would be the General Medical Council in the UK. It might be some other body which regulates plumbing, carpentry, police work, whatever. So these professional bodies define the standards of practice. So they come up with what is good practice, what is expected of their members. They define this and they also enforce it. They also enforce the code of ethics. So where there is an explicit code of ethics, which is typically the case in professional bodies, there are mechanisms whereby this code can be enforced. So how can you know whether people do the right thing, and if people breach those expectations, what are the consequences? This is typically defined by the professional association. Once you're in the profession, you work very autonomously, and the professional association itself is also typically quite autonomous. They may be overseen by regulators, but what they do in their daily work is typically defined by themselves. Then, as part of being a profession, you have to, or being in a profession and being a professional, you have to demonstrate that you keep your knowledge up to date. So this corresponds to the first point. You have to have a basic knowledge to join the profession, but then you have to demonstrate that you keep up to date. And that's where typically you would expect continuous professional development to be part of being a professional. And then at the end of it, because you are a professional, because you have those competences, you have the knowledge, you are held to account for those. So there are higher levels of accountability for professionals than there would be for the general public. So if you are a doctor and if you don't follow policies and procedures, you can be held accountable for malpractice in ways that a normal member of the public could not. So these are typical features that you find across the various professions. Now, the question is, why do we have those? Why do these things exist? And the examples earlier have shown you that there are quite a few of those. So what are the benefits? Why do we want them? Well, there are a number of drivers that have led to the creation of professions. The first one is societal complexity. Now, human societies have become more complex ever since we started agriculture. So this is not a new phenomenon. But it certainly seems to accelerate at the moment. So late industrial societies, like the ones that we live in at the moment, create more and more complexity, and it becomes more and more difficult to navigate the different streams of activities that make up modern society. So that's got to do with division of labor. The knowledge that's required to do certain things, many things that we encounter in our daily lives, is such that you need experts across those various activities. Nobody can do everything that can be done. Nobody knows how to fix your plumbing and do your electricity, and how to police your neighborhood, and how to do open heart surgery. Right? So there's just too much knowledge out there for anybody, and therefore the division of labor has evolved in order to deal with that. And that division of labor continues and becomes more and more fine-grained. So what we need is expertise. We need to be able to identify who is capable of doing something that needs to be done, and we need to be able to trust that these people who we identify can actually do it. So if you have a certain disease, you want to make sure that your doctor is a specialist, and that they know what the state of the art is in treating you. If your faucet leaks, you want to make sure that whoever you call to repair it knows how to do that. So it's got to do with specialized experience and expertise, and the ability to trust people to do that. By having trust, we make life easier. So you can go to your doctor, and if you trust your doctor to do what they're supposed to do, then that makes your life easier. You don't have to look around for 50 different doctors or find your own expertise, but you can simply rely on what your expert tells you. So those are some of the drivers of professionalism, which then has led to the creation of professions within societies. So professionals have the permission to do certain things which other people are not allowed to do. So your doctor may operate on you, your lawyer can represent you in court, your electrician may change your fuse box, all of which are things which not anybody is allowed to do. I cannot perform surgery on you, neither can I come to your house and change your fuse box. You have to have certain qualifications for that. So that's important to understand the professions, which has the advantage for the individuals who are in the profession, so who have the permission to undertake those tasks, that they have a quasi or a full monopoly on doing those tasks, which makes their life better in many respects. Competition within profession is very limited. So this is beneficial for you financially, because you can charge people a certain amount of money which a market might not produce. It's also beneficial for you in terms of reputation. You are recognized as a professional, and that means that people look up to you, hold you in esteem. In order for this to work, you need those professional bodies, those professional associations that define the activities, that support you, and that also enforce them. So professional bodies have an enforcement power, typically, and that is typically linked to something that the state promotes. So society as a whole, as represented by the state, allows professional bodies to do certain things which other organizations might not do. So they can enforce certain standards. And that often is linked to legal or quasi-legal powers. So, for example, if you are a medical doctor and you infringe the standards of the General Medical Council, they may withdraw your license to operate as a medical doctor. That has significant consequences for you, and that is something that other organizations cannot do. So if you work for a company and the company is not happy with you, they can fire you, but they cannot tell you that you're not allowed to work for another company. Professional bodies are allowed to do that. So you as a professional, therefore have a higher degree of accountability. You have more freedom, you have your monopoly, you get your better pay, but you're held accountable for what you do. And if you don't do what you're supposed to do, you can be penalized. So there are certain punishments which only professionals can receive, because only they are expected to follow the rules. So why do we do this? What are the benefits? I've already talked about the benefits for the individual, for the professional. There are things like career growth. There are defined career stages. For example, if you want to be a doctor, you can very clearly map through from medical school all the way to being a consultant, how long it takes, what you need to do. It's all very clear. That's beneficial, can be beneficial. The reputation that you receive as being a professional, the financial benefits that you typically get, professionals are typically paid well. And then generally the fact that you had in esteem as being a professional. Now society benefits from this as well, because it makes sure that there are individuals who can provide services that are important, that they have the experience and the expertise to provide those services. The ethical standards are required to develop and support the trust within those professions. So society benefits from there being agreed standards of trust. This leads to, or can at least lead to, social stability and justice. Professions are also typically open to all sorts of entrants, which means that goes back to individual benefits. You can join a profession and you can predict how it's going to go just on the basis of your performance. Overall, the idea is that this will lead to quality of service, and this may be your healthcare services, your legal services, your security services, your carpentry services. The idea is that professions will lead to a high level of quality of those services. It is important to realize that professions change over time. So there are trajectories. They're not static. What is allowed, what isn't allowed, what is the body of knowledge, those things change. The characteristics of different types of professions may change. So the level, for example, to which they are allowed to mete out sanctions for their members varies. But I think it is probably fair to say that they all can do this to some extent, by the very least, by removing you from the profession. And then it's also important to recognize that there are different levels and roles within professions. So if you look at healthcare, for example, as a professional area, then you have different types. I've talked about doctors a lot, but of course they are not the only professionals in the healthcare world. You have nurses, you have technicians, you have different types of professional roles, and they may be governed by different bodies. So doctors and nurses are overseen by different professional bodies. And then even within your specific professional body and association, there may be different roles, which lead to different areas of knowledge, different levels of accountability. So these are some of the characteristics of professions. These are the some of the benefits of professions that explain why societies have come up with professions. Now, this is, I think, an important piece of knowledge for you to be aware of as computer science students. And a key question that we will discuss for the remainder of the module is how this idea of professionalism is reflected in the area of computing. So for you, the question is, which one of those characteristics I've talked about apply to you, or already do, or maybe will apply to you in the future? And how do you deal with them? And how do you deal with the expectations that are on you because you are, or you may only be perceived to be, a professional? So these are questions we will explore over the next few weeks in module COMP3020. Thank you for your attention.